Hello, everyone. This is Ben Dunn, founder of Antarctic Press, a publishing company established in 1985. Creator of such comics as Warrior Nun, Marvel Mangaverse, Ninja High School, and a host of other characters. Um, once when I was younger and I was just starting out, an old veteran gave me said something to me that sort of stuck with me for rest of my life. He said, in this business, especially in entertainment, is you have what is called feast or famine. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in our in this particular case, especially in comics, especially in entertainment, is that when you're working, you're doing pretty good, making some money, some hopefully good money, and you're doing well, and you have income at your disposal. But when you're not working, then you can't pay your bills, you have no sustained income to support you, and it can be a problem. Now the thing is the distance between feast and famine is that when you're working and when you're not working. Now, the ideal situation, of course, is that you're always working, but that's not always the case. The problem is that you're competing with other creators, other comic book artists, other people who are also in your field of expertise, in your profession, so to speak. Unlike a regular, what you call, quote unquote regular job where you're either being paid by the hour or have a salary, you go like a journeyman from job to job, unless you're your own creator, in which case you control the output and you control how much you can work. The thing about being a creator of your own material is that sales are unreliable. You don't know what your sales are going to be for one for one job or the other, and it's this unpredictability that makes it difficult to sustain a normal income level because you don't know what your next sales are going to be, especially when you're crowdfunding. The ideal situation is that when you're crowdfunding, the next project that you're going to do is going to do better than the last project you're going to do. You there's a general rule in comics that the first issue is going to be your big seller, and then it's going to drop off a cliff with their second issue. The thing about it is that retailers usually take a chance on the first issue in hopes that the sales will be tremendous, and then by the second issue, they're cutting their orders, quite substantially because they don't know what the first issue is going to sell. So they don't want to take a chance being stuck with unsold inventory, if the first issue is a bomb. And that's usually the case in most. That's usually mostly the case in comics. Now, it's not always the situation. I know in crowdfunding it can change. The second issue may actually do better than the first issue, especially when there's enough time in between issues and that the first issue actually resonated with readers and they really like what they've gotten. Now, if can you actually make a living doing comics, so doing commissions, doing freelance work, doing your own creator work? Well, let's create some numbers, shall we? Now according to the latest statistics, the average income is about $77,000 in this country in order to maintain sort of a middle class lifestyle. Let's be generous. Let's say you're a single individual, you're a creator, you're a comic book artist, and let's say you can live on $50,000 a year. So let's plug in $50,000. Now this is before taxes. This is before taxes. This is gross. And what I mean by gross is that your total income. You don't have any other. You haven't excluded any expenses or anything else like that. But just say you can live comfortably on $50,000. So, let's see. You divide that by 12. And then you divide that by 4 weeks. In an average month. So you divide that by what 30 days, and then let's see. I think I did something wrong here. Let's see, 50,000 divided by 12. This works out to about $4,166 a month that you should be making, divided by 4 weeks. So you should be making $1,041 a week. Divided that, let's say, so you should be making about $1,041 a month. Okay, if you wanted to maintain a income level of $50,000 a year, so you divide that by let's see, a 5-day workday, so you should be making about $208 a week. That's not bad. You can ask yourself, I can make $208 a week, no problem. Yeah, no problem at all. I should be able to. And that's really what it comes down to. Of course, depending on where you live, depending on what your expenses are, $208 probably doesn't go very far. And that's if you're sustained, you can manage that kind of level on a weekly basis. Now, you said, Ben, I could do that easily. $208 doesn't sound like much. Well, you'd be surprised how difficult it actually is, especially for a first-time comic book creator to generate that kind of income, every month, and that's if you're satisfied with that, that's if you can live on that. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, you probably easily could, you're doing commissions. You're working on your own creator-owned material, working freelance work. The thing about it is that it's the unpredictability of it all. When you're working for somebody else or relying on others to hire you to do work, then it can be a daunting task. Now if you have a name for yourself and you're especially popular and your work is in demand, yeah, should be no problem. This is why artists who are extremely popular, charge what they charge, and that's because their work is very much in demand. And see, that's the key issue here. You want your work to be in demand. You want to create a level of professionalism that people are constantly wanting to hire you to create something, and that's where sustainability comes in, because if you make enough, for instance, let's say, you have to make $208 a week to sustain yourself. Now, if you make, $208 a day to sustain yourself, and or no, that's not $208 a week to sustain yourself, right? But like I said, 1,000, about what I say, already lost track of my numbers. What can I say? I'm a boomer. Let's see, divided by 12. About 4,066. So, let's say you're a very popular artist and you're in demand. Let's say you do one project and you charge $10,000, okay, for a particular project. You pretty much gotten enough to sustain yourself for the next 2.5 months. That's really what it comes down to. So if you're doing, let's say, two projects that you can complete in a month, and you make $20,000 right there. You've already made about 5 months worth of sustainability. You don't have to do anything else except for those two projects. So you get my meaning is that the reason a lot of comic artists charge this much because they know they can. They know they can make that kind of money, and they can sustain themselves over a long period of time. So, and that means they can get a higher standard of living, and maybe put some away to retire on. So, I mean, a lot of it is financial planning, because I tell you what, comic artists are notoriously known for not being, financially astute. Now, I'm not saying that all of them are, but I'm just saying that a lot of us, especially comic creators, really don't think long term as far as our financial sustainability are concerned. We only are concerned about what our next job is going to be and what we're going to be creating and how much it's going to pay us. We do, unfortunately, a lot of us live from paycheck to paycheck, and we have to hustle to find our next job, looking for people to hire us to work on their next project, and that's really what it comes down to is that we have to either create our own material so that we can sustain ourselves based on what we can control, or we hope that someone will hire us in terms of trying to create enough income to sustain our standard of living. That's why a lot of us use this as sort of a secondary job, and we have a primary job. It's an unfortunate state of affairs, but that's just the reality of life. That you have to pay your bills. You gotta live. Gotta have a roof over your head. Gotta have food in your tummy. You gotta be able to entertain yourselves every once in a while. So, my advice to you is to plan accordingly. Try to work out a way that you can sustain yourself based on the income that you bring in. And of course, that's gross. Like I said, if you go to conventions a lot, then you have to travel. That's time taken away from you to create. You have to set up. You have to pay the table rent unless you're a guest there. But how often do you are a guest at a convention, especially when you're starting out? It is difficult. Now, if you're a pro, with a huge following and you're making some good money, then you don't really need to go to things like that because you're making good money. Whether that'll last, I don't know. It's really up to how savvy you are with your money. How savvy you are with being able to parlay your name into something that can be turned into something monetary. Because a lot of times, it's your name that people are reliant on. It's not their character. It's not what you create. Oh yeah, that helps. But really, you're selling your name more than you're selling your character. Someone once told me that you want people to remember who you are and not what you've created. Of course, knowing what you've created does give you notoriety and does give you the ability to parlay that into some monetary gain. If you create something famous, then people will remember you for that and they'll want to be part of that. But you want to rely more on your name. So when people say the word somebody like Kirby or Ditko or Frazetta or Schultz, or Foster, or any other famous artists, past and present, exactly who you're talking about. Like people like Dave Stevens or Steranko, people like that. Exactly what kind of style they employ, what kind of work they've done, what kind of professionally to expect, things like that. And that's where reputation comes in. It's very important to maintain a good reputation, to keep your word, to give people value, so that they'll constantly want to work with you all the time. Says, hey, this guy's a pretty good guy. He's always been reliable. He's always done commissions when I pay him to do commissions in a timely fashion. I don't understand why an artist would accept money for commission and just don't do the commission. I mean, that's what he's hired to do. That's the same as if you hired a mechanic or a plumber or anybody else to do a particular piece of work and pay them ahead of time, and they don't do it. They just sit there staring at it, you know, and you expect them to do the work. It's the same, no exception, to the comic book artists. Our comic book artists are paid to draw. That's their primary profession, is to draw. If they don't fulfill that, particular uh, expectation, then what in the world are they doing? You shouldn't be accepting money from customers if you're not going to deliver the goods. It's just, and people know this. Though if you don't fulfill your promises, then you're going to get a reputation of not fulfilling your promise, and that deteriorates trust between an artist and his client. And that's probably the worst thing that can happen to an artist, is to have the reputation of not completing work when they're hired to be paid to do so. So, that's very important when you're starting out, especially if you're a professional. People like to work with people who are trustworthy and can be relied upon to complete work in a timely fashion. So that's really what it really comes down to, and that's helps in your sustainability as far as making a living is concerned. Can you make a living doing comics? Yes, you can. Of course, you can. There's countless examples of people making a living doing comics. Will you get rich doing comics? Yes, it's possible. There's many artists out there who've become multimillionaires. Charles Schultz, Bill Watterson, and countless other comic book creators or comic artists have made millions and have retired comfortably. Jim Davis, things like that. But that's because the one thing they have in common is that they've worked to maintain the relationship between their customers and themselves. They do the work, they entertain, they create things that people want to buy, and that's really what it comes down to. Simple as that. If you're producing work that people want to buy, eventually you're going to do well. And it's really up to you how you handle your finances. That will be the key to long-term success. So I, for one, I wish I could say that I am a multimillionaire, but I am not. I am wanting to become one, but as I grow older and older, I mean, that dream is becoming more and more elusive. Now, I'm not saying I don't live comfortably. I do. I just haven't created anything that has catapulted me to the stratosphere, or I'm just a lousy businessman. I fully admit I'm not really good with money, and here I am giving advice on that. But I'm just giving you some examples of what I think would work. I mean, I do live comfortably. I got a roof over my head, and I have enough income. Every once in a while, I do have to supplement that income by doing other things, but that's just the thing. I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to go ahead and do whatever it takes to maintain a certain level of income in order to pay my bills and to sustain a level of a comfortable living, basically. So anyway, that's really what it comes down to as far as the comic artist is concerned. If you can parlay your talent into something sustainable, in which case you can make a good living off of it, then yes, I would think that would be a great thing. But if you're struggling to try to make ends meet, then you may want to rethink what you're doing wrong, or reevaluate the approach you're taking toward your work. See what your clients are demanding, and or pivot and see what you can to try to improve your financial situation. So But anyway, that's some advice I can give you. Take it for what you will, whether you believe it or not. So just if you like what you've heard, please like and subscribe. And until next time, this has been Done signing off.